We are 8 games into the first 12-team college football playoff, and we've had one game come down to the wire. One game come down to the final possession. That's it. We're going to give you my takeaways from the quarterfinals here in this video. But the games were more entertaining, I thought, in the second round. I'm going to give kind of some big picture takeaways, and then we'll go through each game. So here's the updated bracket. The big picture takeaway is, I feel bad for Oregon and the fact that they had to play the hottest team in the country, the team that's playing better than anyone, in the quarterfinals. Oregon, the only team to go undefeated, and they get rewarded by having to play Ohio State in the quarterfinals. So you hate that for Oregon. Again, we talked about how maybe they should redo the seeding for these teams. But, Oregon loses to Ohio State. We saw Texas in a classic go down to Arizona State. Again, I'm going to go into these games a little bit more. Notre Dame beats Georgia. Penn State versus Boise State. The Notre Dame-Georgia game was not necessarily super close. You know, the final score, it wasn't a one-possession game, but that was a competitive game. That was a game it was an exciting game. Even Penn State-Boise State in the second half, there was a time when you thought Boise State maybe had a chance. The only game that was, I think, a complete blowout was Ohio State-Oregon, which, of course, was the game everyone thought was going to be the closest game. But yeah, my big takeaway is just the path for Oregon was going to be so tough. Even if they beat Ohio State, then they have to play Texas. So a very tough path for the #1 overall seed. That's just terrible when you look at that. But the other big takeaway is the fact that all the teams that had a first-round bye, they all lost. Georgia lost. Boise State lost. Arizona State lost. Oregon lost. So all of the teams that are still in the playoff played in the first round. All of the teams hosted a first-round game. So, I mean, that's really interesting. Really interesting how it played out this year. I don't know if it's going to be like this all the time, but you wonder about those teams that had the extra time. Maybe it didn't help them. Oregon definitely started really slow versus, Ohio State's a team that had played and maybe had some momentum. Arizona State started really slow. They came on late, of course, but they started slow. Boise State started kind of slow. Georgia, Notre Dame, that one was pretty even early on, so I wouldn't say that was a slow start from Georgia. But, that's a big takeaway. The teams that got the first round bye all lost, all of them, which is, to me, just crazy. So let's get into the matchups now, and I'll give you my takeaways from each game. We will start with Penn State, Boise State. Penn State wins this one 31-14. I actually thought that Boise State proved that they belonged. Even though this final score was not very close, they proved that they belong because they played horrible in this game. You look at 4 turnovers. You look at the touchdown they had that got taken off because of the penalty. A lot of penalties on them. I mean, there were just a lot of mistakes from Boise State, but they moved the football. They actually played pretty well in this game. I think that they actually outgained Penn State in yardage. So, yeah, they proved that they belonged, but we talked about this last week. When you have a team that's not as good, that is an underdog, and I think Penn State's definitely the better team, don't get me wrong. When I say Boise State showed they belonged, that doesn't mean that I think they were better than Penn State or anything. But when you have an underdog, a team, especially from a talent perspective, that is at a disadvantage like Boise State was, that team, if they play really well, they'll have a chance. But if they don't play well, they're going to get blown out. And that's what we saw, I felt like, with Indiana and Notre Dame in the first round. SMU, Penn State in the first round. Like, Indiana didn't play well. SMU did not play well. It was going to take that underdog team playing really, really well to have a chance, which is what we did see out of Arizona State, which we'll get to in a second. But I thought Boise State proved they belong, but Penn State, this is a really good football team. I mean, they just are. And they showed that if you do make mistakes, they will capitalize. And you will not beat a team like Penn State making that many mistakes. I think Penn State probably wins this game no matter what. But if Boise State, again, does not make all those mistakes, I think this is a close game. I think, the play calling would have probably been different. Penn State maybe, the whole game would have been different if it was closer. And I do think Penn State would have won. And I think they were clearly the better team. But Boise State had a chance. So I was actually impressed with the Broncos, even though the final score didn't look all that close. There was a time there in the third quarter where you thought Boise State maybe had a chance. Again, that penalty they had on the touchdown really was a killer. The interceptions were bad. So Boise State did not play well, and Penn State took advantage of that. They won this game, and again, I do believe they were the better team anyways. All right, next we got Texas, Arizona State. Now, this is by far the best game of the playoffs so far. Early on, it felt like Texas was going to blow them out, and you could kind of see the talent edge, the speed of this Texas team. It was like, oh man, this is going to be a blowout. But boy, I've got to give a lot of credit to this Arizona State team. Cam Skattebo, the way he played in this game, unbelievable. I know a lot of people talking about him for the Heisman. I wish we would wait and do the Heisman voting after the playoff because I think there's no way. I'm looking at Genty and Skattebo in these two games, and Skattebo looks like the guy that should have won the Heisman, at least out of those two. Again, Travis Hunter did win it, but it's talking about running back because I know a lot of people thought Ashton Genty should have won it over Travis Hunter. But boy, Skattebo put this team on his back. Made plays, doing everything, running the football, making some big catches. That one catch he had down the sideline was huge in this game. Had the touchdown pass. I mean, he did everything, put this team on his back. And with Jordan Tyson healthy in this one, maybe Arizona State wins. Or if maybe they don't make the decision on that targeting penalty that they did, maybe Arizona State wins this game. They had opportunity after opportunity. But you got to give Texas credit. They made the plays in overtime. They held on. They won this game. It was just a great game between two teams that looked pretty even to me. And that's kind of been the story for Texas this season. Their offense at times just really, it's like they're stuck in the mud. Like they started off really, really fast, and then it was, I don't know. That's concerning as you look ahead to Texas and Ohio State. But yeah, my takeaways here: Arizona State. The way that they overperformed this season. If you look at the talent on this roster, you look at where they were predicted. You've got to give a ton of credit to this Arizona State team. Kenny Dillingham, I think I said this before. I think he's going to be one of the next great coaches in college football, and I think this program has a very bright future. But Texas again just made the plays at the end to win it. This was a great one. All right, next we've got Ohio State, Oregon. So yeah, a lot of Oregon fans were talking a lot last week because I picked Ohio State to win this game, and I heard a lot from these Oregon fans. This game not close at all. I didn't even expect. I gave Oregon way too much credit. I expected them to at least compete in this game, but no, they got blown out. And again, maybe it was a really hot Ohio State team that had momentum, and an Oregon team that had been sitting for a while. I don't know if that played into it. Again, we saw these teams play a couple of months ago, and it was a very close game. It was a very entertaining game. So there was, you didn't really expect it to be this type of game. You almost wonder if was Ohio State holding back all year? Like were they just being way too conservative, and now they're turning it loose, and that offense is just, it's doing what I thought it would do. If you go back all the way to the preseason, I thought clearly, when I looked at all these teams, I clearly thought that Ohio State was the best team. I picked them to win the national championship. I stuck with them all year until they lost to Michigan because I didn't know what to expect after that game. But we are seeing the Ohio State team that I and many other people thought we would see. Again, I'm not special. A lot of people said Ohio State was going to be the best team this year. But everyone that could see that, now we're starting to actually see what we thought we were going to see from this Ohio State team. And it's going to be tough for anyone to beat them. It just is if they continue to play like this. Now, they may come out against Texas and struggle, and they may make mistakes, and they may lose. But if they play the way they have played these last two games, they are not going to lose another game, and they're going to win the national championship. At their best, no one else in the country, in my opinion, can beat Ohio State. But will they play their best? That's tough to do for 4 straight games, but we will find out, of course, next week. All right, final takeaway, Notre Dame, Georgia. This one goes to Notre Dame. Really, 2 plays decided this game. The fumble at the end of the first half, which Notre Dame turned into a quick touchdown, and then the punt return for a touchdown for Notre Dame. You take out those 2 plays, this game comes down to the final play. I really believe it. Now, look, you can say, well, if you take those 2 touchdowns off the board, Notre Dame loses 10-9. No, that's not how it works. Because if they had not had those plays, the play calling would have been different. Everything in the game would have been different, and they would have won this game. Because I did think they were the better team. Georgia's receivers letting them down again. Gunnar Stockton made some great plays in this game, but I just don't think he was ready. His pocket presence was not great. He was getting sacked in this game a lot. That's something I think just comes with experience, and Notre Dame's pass rush was really good in this game. So these, to me, were two very even teams. The score says Notre Dame's 13 points better, but no, I think that these teams were very, very even. I do think Notre Dame was the better team, and I think it did come down to the quarterbacks. Riley Leonard, the veteran, he made the plays late, run out the clock and all that. So I felt like Notre Dame was the better team, but it was not by a lot. And again, if you take away those two plays, this one probably comes down to the very end. Again, I still think Notre Dame probably wins it. I think Riley Leonard makes the plays for the Irish to get this win. But it was a very, very competitive game, even though it was, but it wasn't. Hopefully that makes sense. I think these teams were very, very even. But those two plays made the difference. And that's what happens in these games a lot of times, especially the lower scoring games. A couple of plays can decide a game. And that's exactly what we saw in this one. That play, the Marcus Freeman, the play where they went out like they were going to punt, and then they did the substitute. That was, I don't think I've ever seen that. That was very, very clever there by Notre Dame. That helped them late in this one. They made the plays. Georgia didn't at the end of the day. If Carson Beck had been in this game, maybe Georgia wins, but I don't know. Again, the receivers didn't. Gunnar Stockton made some good throws. Receivers didn't help him out. And with this pass rush, Carson Beck, not the most mobile guy, so I don't know how it would have played out, but I think it probably would have been different, and it probably would have been closer. I doubt, Carson Beck fumbles the ball there late in the first half. He probably has the pocket presence to avoid that, but this was a great game, and I think we've got a couple of great games here for the semifinals. Ohio State and Texas has the potential to be really, really good. Ohio State, though, again, if they play the way they played the last two games, they probably win this one pretty easily. Notre Dame and Penn State, though, if this one is not close, I will be shocked because these teams are very similar. I think it's going to be a very good game. But again, it could be one of those games where if a team makes a special teams touchdown and defensive touchdown, like I know Notre Dame didn't make the defensive touchdown, but they had the defensive play that led to a quick touchdown. The team that makes a couple of plays like that, maybe they do win by a couple of touchdowns. But if these teams both play smart, I think this game is going to be very, very good. And then again, if Texas plays their A game and Ohio State doesn't play perfect, then this one could be really close. But if Ohio State plays another A-plus game, I think they probably win easily over Texas. So we'll find out. I'll give you my previews on these games, my predictions as we get maybe over the next couple of days getting ready for these semifinal matchups. So give me your thoughts on the quarterfinals down in the comments below, and we'll have much, much more on the playoff, and then some other videos I'm going to be doing where we kind of recap the season, look at which teams overperformed, underperformed, which teams were better than their record would suggest. If you follow those in the past, we'll be doing all those videos here over the next couple of weeks. Then we'll get to the national championship, and we will jump right into 2025 as we start to preview next season. So again, let me know your thoughts on the playoffs so far and on the quarterfinals down in the comments below.